last time on Oz Hour?
Okay, last time on Oz Hour, they show up to Ozma's birthday type of thing, and Dorothy and Ozma greet each other, and Dorothy's like, "Oh, why didn't you invite me to your birthday?" And Ozma's like, "Actually, I did. How did you think that you ended up here? Thank you very much." And I was like, "Oh, it would have been nice if you actually fucking just brought me here instead of did all this other shit, but that's fine. I'm here now." And so then they continue. The Shaggy Man's here, and he's like, "I want to stay here." And he gives up all the things like the love magnet and other things to be here because he just loves the Emerald City. And then they meet these insane amount of people. The fact that you guys want me to remember all these names is absolutely insane. So I'm not even going to say them except for Santa, because Santa was there. He did make a cameo. So did several other people make cameos, and they were there. And all these other things happened. It was a party. It was a parade. Bubbles happened. Everyone went home after that. And the end. Thank you.
Hi there, and welcome to Oz Hour, the only place where you can hear everything you never knew about the wonderful and strange land of Oz.
That's right. With the help of some alcohol, we will be discussing each of the 14 books in L. Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz series.
Today, we will be beginning Book 6, The Emerald City of Oz, covering chapters 1 through 4.
We're your hosts, Blake Stone
And Wyatt Swangham.
And joining us is our resident Oz initiate, Hannah Aguirre.
Hello, hello.
All right.
Nice.
Do we not like that?
So, Hannah, you just played last time on where you recapped the end of Book 5, The Road to Oz. How long did that take, Wyatt?
That took about exactly a minute.
Okay, wow. That is always the goal.
I'm getting good on my time.
Yeah. Let's see what I even wrote down for notes on that, because I feel like you did pretty
I
good.
thought it was pretty good.
All I wrote was that you failed to mention that the Shaggy Man stole the love magnet that he's had the whole time from a
right.
young woman in Butterfield. That's a pretty big deal. And then I wrote guest, Santa. And then, yeah, there's a big to-do, and then they all go home because the wizard made impenetrable bubbles so that everyone could ride back safely. So, yeah, that's how that ended. And also, as usual, Hannah attempted to summarize the entirety of our previous book, The Road to Oz. So stay tuned after the credits for that absolute 2-minute and 50-second shit show.
It was insane.
It was long,
I
but
forgot
very
a
good.
lot of things, but then I brought them back up again. So it's a lot of that.
Also, before we started recording, Wyatt went ahead and whipped up some cocktails. What are we sipping on? Sipping on.
Tonight we are sipping on Roquat the Red, the recipe for which you can find on our Instagram at Oz Hour Podcast.
Let me slurp. That tastes like a popsicle.
Book 6, The Emerald City of Oz, published in 1910. Chapter 1, How the Gnome King Became Angry.
You
I know.
heard that right. We are back with the Gnome King.
I hate the Gnome King.
The return to
Yeah.
Oz fell perfectly in our lineup
This
because
really
we did that last
did.
week.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So just wait, because there's a few things we're going to be talking about.
So right off the bat, Gnome King, angry mood.
Yeah.
Which means all the other gnomes are keeping the hell away from him.
They're all steering
Yikes.
clear. He's pacing. Even the chief steward, who you'll remember from last time, who kind of gave him
He
some
has
sass.
a name this time.
Oh, he does. His name? Calico, with
Yeah.
2 Ks.
But
Ooh.
he's staying away from the Gnome King because
Yeah.
the Gnome King is pacing back and forth like, I'm so pissed. I'm real pissed. I'm so
Yeah,
pissed off.
he's just raving
yeah.
mad.
I'll stay away from that too. No
Yeah.
thanks. Bad negativity. Not my way.
Right. But you
No.
can stay away from it all you want because the Gnome King remembers misery loves company.
Yeah, he's like, it's not very fun being mad when there's no one here to be mad at. So he does what anyone would do, and he rings his giant gong, and it goes, yeah. And then the steward has to enter.
Calico.
Calico, yeah.
Hi, Calico.
He is terrified. terrified. He runs as fast as his spindly little legs can carry him on his fat little round body and is like, hello, what do you need from me? The Gnome King just basically shouts at Calico to go and get the chief counselor.
Yeah, he just wants his chief counselor.
I wish there was a gong for him.
I know. Well, only one, that's the thing. There's only one person who should respond to the gong, and then they should take the instruction. And he does. And he does. He runs out of there on his little body, and the king is like, "Hey, like at this point, the advisor's there, and he's like, "Hey, I'm really not liking this whole thing where I don't have my magic belt. I keep trying to use magic, and nothing happens, and it's super annoying. Like, what would you advise?" The Gnome King's counselor is like, "Hey, like, just, some people like being angry." And the Gnome King's like, "No, I'm not angry. Like, I don't like that all the time. It's not fun all the time."
Yeah.
I get
He's
that.
like, well, if you're angry because you can't do magical things, but you don't want to be angry, then just stop wanting to do magical things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't want magic
No,
then.
That's like easier said than done.
It is
am I
easier
right?
said than done, but that's what I tell myself every day.
I don't want magical things, Hannah. Don't want magical things. This response makes the Gnome King so mad. He pulls on his own beard until it makes him cry out in pain.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's like,
Self-harm much?
yeah, it is, honestly. And he's like, "You are a fool." And the chief counselor, or the whatever he is counselor, what he says back,
He has some nerve.
my first reaction was, that's grounds for execution. Because he said, "I share the honor with your majesty." So he's saying,
Sick
"Oh, I'm a
burn.
fool? Yeah, like, I share that with you." Well,
The Gnome King says, "Ho there, my guards!" And Elfrinkbaum tells us
yeah.
that ho is a royal way of saying come here.
Yeah.
So when the guards are hoed, the Gnome
It's just
King
stupid.
orders them to take the chief counselor
Throw him
and
away.
Throw him away.
And the guards bind the counselor in chains and throw him away.
Whatever that means.
I imagine him going in the trash.
I imagine him going
That's
down a
what
black
imagining.
pit.
I'm imagining trash too.
They're just gonna put him in the trash so that he's like, "Help! Somebody help me!" for like 6 days until he dies.
Maybe it's a really deep trash. They just put the bag in, so when they drop him, he's going to be really far down. Okay.
So the Gnome King is just pacing how mad he is. And he's telling Calico, "I want my magic belt back. It was stolen from me by Dorothy and Ozma." And Calico's like, "Yeah, but Dorothy captured it in fair fight."
Yeah. I was like, my note there was like, that's a lie. Like, Dorothy didn't
That's
come
not
there, steal it, and
how
carry
it
it away.
happened.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you kidnapped her
They were
friends.
liberating, like, what, a dozen enslaved people.
Yeah.
So,
But the Gnome King, he's like, "I want it. It's mine. My,
Of
half
course he is.
half of my power is gone without it." He's still plenty powerful.
Oh, God, he's just a little baby.
He's a
just a little
baby.
tiny baby. I just want to kick him in the face.
I
Yeah.
get that.
Calico tells the Gnome King, like, "Well, if you want the magic belt back, you're going to need to go to Oz and retrieve it from Ozma's hands." Ozma's cold, dead hands. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, are
You
you
can't. What are you
kidding?
going to do? There's a deadly desert. Heard of it? Like, we can't even get
There's no
there.
way.
The Gnome King is fed up with this line of questioning, throws a huge ruby at Calico's head. Calico ducks, misses it, but he's told to bring General Blug in to see.
Oh,
the
not
Yes.
General Blood.
No, it is. And he arrives. So you've heard of General Blug before, obviously.
I
Not
just assume
General Blug.
Blug sounds like a blug to the head.
Yes, it's
That's
that.
not a word, but I also understand what you're saying.
General Blug is a cruel commander. He's known as like this horrible, like awful fighter who commands 50,000 gnomes who are all so well trained and they're only afraid of the general. But he's scared to see the king because he's like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, like this guy has the power, you know."
Yeah.
The king commands him to march his army to Oz, destroy the Emerald City, and take back the belt.
General Blug looks the Gnome King in the face very calmly
Okay.
and says, You're crazy.
Okay, we got one rational person
He literally says, "You're crazy."
Yeah.
And my first thought is, this guy's gonna get thrown away. Like, we've
He's
seen it
gonna
happen for lesser offenses.
Honestly.
As Hannah would say, the Gnome King does not like that.
no.
No, he doesn't.
General Blug tells the Gnome King he doesn't know what the fuck the Gnome King's talking about. And he's like, hey, why don't you go in the corner and count to 60 before you speak another word? Because you clearly need to calm down.
Yeah.
Then the Gnome King does something insane.
Mm.
Like, he crawls up into his ruby throne. He tips his crown over one ear, puts his other ear like against his shoulder, tucks his little feet underneath him, wraps his arm around himself, and he starts to pout.
He's pouting like a little boy.
Yeah, he's pouting like a little baby.
What?
And that's all described.
Blug explains that he cannot lead an army across the deadly desert.
Not with
It
that
will kill
attitude.
them.
No.
It will kill them. They don't have the magic. They don't have any magic. If they had the magic belt, maybe.
Maybe.
But also,
or
even
those
if
ruby slippers.
even if they could get across the desert to Oz, Ozma and Glinda and Dorothy and like the Wizard of Oz, they're way too powerful.
There are
cannot
fairy
win.
powers that will stop them. And it's like, too bad we don't have the magic belt. And the Gnome King is like, I want the belt.
Yeah.
Like, give me the belt back.
yeah.
General Blug is like, okay, you want the belt? You know who has the belt? Dorothy Gale of Kansas, USA.
Yeah.
How do we get to Kansas, USA? Tell me how we're going to get there.
But the Gnome King is like, well, okay, no, it's in the Emerald City. I
Yeah,
have
I was
a...
like, she doesn't physically have
she
the
doesn't.
belt.
But they don't know that.
Well,
the
they
only
do that.
reason
I
the
see.
only reason they
Oh,
know that is because one of the Gnome King's spies is a blackbird. And that bird flew over the deadly desert and saw that the magic belt is located in Princess Ozma's palace.
Of course.
So they
Which
know
is
it's
what
not in Kansas.
we already
which is what
know
we
that.
knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So General Blug is like, you know what? That gives me an idea. And General Blug tells the Gnome King that there are two ways to get into Oz without crossing the deadly desert. One is to go over the desert. The other is to go under the desert, through the earth. Oz is on the world with us. Confirmed.
Well, that's true.
We'd love to hear that.
Or at least Oz is just on the
some
other
sort of
side
closure.
of the desert.
Yeah.
But-
I'm locking that box. The Gnome King jumps to his feet. He's super excited. He's like, that's it, Blug. I'm king of the underworld. All of my subjects are miners. We dig holes. The way that the Gnome King did not come to this conclusion himself
Yeah.
is beyond me.
The whole point is that he's like, the whole thing is he's the king of everything under the ground. Like, why has that,
Yeah.
how could that not come up
So
before?
he suddenly comes to the understanding that they will build a secret tunnel under the desert right up into the center of the Emerald City. General Blug is like, hey, soft, settle down. Our army's good. The Emerald City is way stronger.
And I'm like, is there something we don't know about the Emerald City? Because there's not an army. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like,
Oh.
I remember when an army of like housewives and like women
Well,
who
it's
probably
because
had technical skills
Dorothy keeps coming to Oz and accidentally stealing these super magical things
Yeah.
and then just leaving them with
losing
Ozma.
them,
So
yeah.
Ozma has an army of magical clothing items.
Yeah.
But the Gnome King's like, so what do I do? General Blug is like, give up, mind your
Yeah.
own business.
Chill out, rule your kingdom.
Just
Yeah.
do your own thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, what great advice.
It is, but you know what the Gnome King does?
He says no thanks.
No,
Not
he
an
doesn't say a
option.
word.
Oh.
He takes his scepter, which has a gigantic sapphire, I think, at the top of it, and then he throws it and knocks Glub right out.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, not Glub.
He rings the
Glub.
gong.
Glub.
Yes.
Yeah, he rings the bell, and Blug is thrown away.
He has
Thrown
Blug
away.
Yeah,
God damn it.
He's thrown right away.
Now, here we learn that the Gnome King's name is Roquat the Red. Name change moment.
Yeah.
Roquat.
So before we had Roquat of the Rocks, as pictured in the cocktail Roquat on the Rocks, but now we celebrate Roquat the Red.
Yeah. Hey, he transitioned, and we support that.
Yeah, we support any.
But nobody loves him because he's just so bad. But he's made up his mind. Hey, we are going to destroy the land of Oz and the Emerald City. We're going to enslave Princess Ozma and Dorothy. And you know what? All the Ozians. And we are going to recover the magic belt.
God, he is always just on an evil plan,
He
isn't
is.
he?
Yeah, he is.
And L. Frank Baum reiterates, hey, the Gnome King, he has many evil plans. Like, he's always been like this.
He's always
like,
scheming.
He's terrible.
Like,
But here's the thing. Ozma and Dorothy have no idea they've made such a dangerous enemy. They do not think about this guy. They're like, he's an
They barely
that was
remember him.
months ago.
Yeah, they were like,
They're
we
like
saw him.
chilling. They're like, woohoo, Oz.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the city back.
Yeah, they're like, hey, that's a cool magic belt that belonged to the Gnome King. We saw him for 10 hours.
And now they use the magic belt in every single book. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
just theirs. They don't think about him. L.
yeah.
Frank Baum ends this chapter by saying that an unsuspected enemy is doubly dangerous.
And that is the end of chapter 1,
Ooh.
entitled How the Gnome King Became Angry. And Blake, what would you call that?
Gnome more, Mr. Nice Guy.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh, is that a song?
Gnome, yeah. Chapter 2, How Uncle Henry Got into Trouble. I don't know if anybody else has noticed the theme of these chapters starting with the word how. What I will tell you is there are 30 chapters in this book. Every single one of them starts with the word
it's
how.
like
What?
it's like an
Yeah.
episode of Friends where it's like the one where they go glamping.
Oh my god, it is like
Also, they
that.
keep just bringing back. Well, it's not bringing back so much because Uncle Henry has technically always been there.
This
So, like, why are we
chapter-
bringing up Uncle Henry?
I'll
See-
tell you why, okay? Because we start this chapter by getting a little bit of background on Dorothy.
It's
Probably
poetic.
too much. We know a lot about
Ooh.
her. But Dorothy lives on a farm in Kansas with Aunt Em and Uncle Hen.
Yeah.
It's not a very good farm, actually. The rains don't come quite often, and so everything dries up and it dies.
And once a cyclone took the whole farm away, and Henry was so poor that he had to mortgage the farm to rebuild it.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I don't think I was here for when that cyclone came. Does that sound familiar to anyone
I don't
else?
really remember.
Never heard of a cyclone.
No.
But then, this is also unfamiliar to me. Henry was sick, and his doctor had him take a ship voyage to Australia because he needed to see his family to get, well.
Yeah.
So that wasn't cheap either.
That's
doctor's
pretty
orders.
insane that L. Frank Baum seems to be remembering certain things.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
all of a
remembering
sudden,
all these
honestly,
things.
this
But it's
book.
like, the thing is that the things I hear is remembering is it seems like small details that don't really matter too
I know,
much.
but that's what's crazy, right? Is like he notices the small things, which means he must be rereading.
That's so stupid.
So
But
how do
this-
you?
Honestly, let's try not to get too matchy.
Yeah,
where
we
don't-
can't get that
I'm
tied up
gonna-
right now.
This book is
It's going
actually
further.
really well done, and he tries to clean up some of his mess.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
think he cleans up his mess as well,
As an
but he does.
aside-
But he's
try.
doing his best.
This is
Okay.
9 years after the first book. So we've been doing this podcast for
9
basically
years after the first book.
Yeah,
We've been doing this podcast for like a year. So
this is 9 years.
9
of the author's
years
life.
between first and last. So he's
So-
changed a lot, and the writing style is really
crazy.
different.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty damn good. Like, it's actually pretty good writing.
Oh,
be
So
honest.
let's jump in. So basically, Uncle Henry is just getting poorer and poorer every year. The crops they raise are really only enough to feed their family. The three of them, they're not selling anything
So
from the
they're
farm.
not even making money. They
So
have
they're
a mortgage.
They're not paying their mortgage.
They work
Thank
all day,
God.
every day.
Basically
Thank God they don't
surviving.
have electricity.
I know that bill. Oh my god, these
thank
winters.
God.
Yeah.
Dorothy doesn't have to get scared from any switches.
No, yeah, and we know
But
how
yeah,
she hates
like
switches.
anything they're growing is feeding the family and feeding the animals, and the
Yeah.
animals are just working for them. I
They
guess
must be working animals, or like
Um,
maybe they slaughter them and eat them.
But finally, it gets to the point where the bank tells Uncle Henry, "Pay up, or else
Yeah.
your farm and house that you mortgage to us are ours."
No.
Which, for all of you out there who love John Steinbeck, this is just the Grapes of Wrath. It is
Yes.
just the banks
When did
coming
that
for
come out?
farmland. That was in the 20s? Oh, well,
Okay.
it's written about the 20s. It's
okay.
retrospective,
So
somewhat.
they stole this. Steinbeck
so they
stole this.
It was the Dust
stole
Bowl.
from L. Frank Baum.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, to be honest.
we learn, honestly, and this makes me think of like the previous episode where we did Return to Oz, because we learned that Henry's doing everything he can to tend the farm, and Aunt Em and Dorothy are doing all of the house stuff, and they are not getting along well. They can hardly stand each other.
Yikes.
And that was kind of the vibe I was getting from the beginning of that movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's stressful,
same.
man, and we learn here also that Dorothy, so now we're kind of like, this whole chapter, we started with a wide pan of the farm and the farmhouse. We've zoomed in on the farmhouse. We've passed through the doors, and now we're zooming in on Dorothy. So Dorothy was a normal girl, and she just had these insane adventures, basically. And Aunt Em said she thought that Dorothy must have been marked by fairies at birth because she was always going to these queer places, and she always came back and was fully protected by some unseen force.
Yeah. Crazy.
And it's like, okay, so we're finally acknowledging
Crazy.
that this is insane, right?
But Uncle
Yeah.
Henry
5 books.
Uncle Henry does not believe Dorothy's stories.
Yeah.
He thinks she is merely a
Okay.
dreamer like her dead mother had been.
So now we know.
Okay, I just want to like say I'm so glad that we're acknowledging these people.
Literally.
Yes.
This should have been the first book.
Because every time every book has ever ended, it doesn't seem like Uncle Henry or Aunt Em care about anything that Dorothy does. And the thing is, like, there's something going on with Dorothy.
I'm
And so
with
the fact they're
you.
acknowledging it right now, I'm like, thank God, because that is what makes the most sense. Is
There
that
you go.
you acknowledge that this kid is, whether you see them leave or not, you see that there's something different about them. Just give
But
me
okay,
that.
here's the thing. They may not see her leave, but it does say that Dorothy has spent several long periods of time where she disappears unexpectedly
There we go.
and returns safe and
Yeah.
sound with amazing stories of the land of Oz. So Uncle Henry is like, I don't think she's a liar, but I think
Yeah.
these are dreams that are so real to her that she's saying them like they're true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's missing for days.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like Henry hears the stories, and he's like, Dorothy seems like she's actually gained life experience from these dreams she's had, and because it seems so real, and she has been gone, it even tests him. He's like, God, I just can't believe it. But at the same time, like, she has gone for days,
Well,
and then
also-
comes back changed.
And she's also talking about like the riches of the Emerald City, how everything's encrusted in these giant emeralds. And he's like,
Yeah.
one emerald could save our lives right now.
Honestly,
he's just like drinking. He's binge drinking.
if
Imagining.
I was him, I would be like, okay, if this is real, why are you not bringing anything back to
Yeah,
us? Because
right.
we're straight up struggling right now. I got
Exactly.
2 mortgages.
But
Okay.
they just think dumb kid.
in my notes, I have a sub bullet that says Dorothy never brought home any fucking emeralds though. And like just one.
So she
'Cause
doesn't care.
Uncle Henry says just
Yeah.
one of those would pay all their debts.
But it does say we do learn in this moment that like Dorothy has never really understood how poor her family was
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, and also,
Um,
has she been able to bring anything back? Because
No,
not
nothing's
really.
ever come back with her except for
Exactly.
Toto, and she
Yeah.
brought him with her.
Yeah.
Nothing. The shoes
the
stay.
thing
The
she
magic belt
brings
stays.
from Oz seems to not come back
They
to
can't
her
come back.
in
Yeah.
Kansas.
It makes me wonder.
So
if it
it's
could.
like
Um,
even if she had the thought of giving her
That's-
parents money,
That's actually really
maybe
interesting
she
because
wouldn't
it's
be
like
able to.
she could, like, as far as I understand from the previous books, if she wanted to bring the ruby slippers back, if she wanted to bring the magic belt back, she could bring those things. They would just be useless in Oz, but they would still be those things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in Kansas, not Oz. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
But
what-
if she brings back a 10-pound emerald,
I think that's
when
just
she
still
gets
a
to
10-pound
Kansas,
emerald.
it's still a
It's not
10-pound
gonna be a
emerald, right?
rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't turn into coal, so
Yeah.
bring that shit. Anyway, Uncle Henry finally tells Aunt Em about the bank taking their home.
And there's 30 days.
There's 30 days.
Oh, no.
She sobs because she knows they can't make the money in that time.
Yeah.
But
Finally.
then she says, you know what? We just have to go make a living and work. Like, that's what it is. Like, she's
That's
very
what Aunt Em
serious.
says?
Yes, yeah. She's pragmatic. She's like, hey,
She's like, we're going to leave Kansas.
yeah, we're
gonna
gonna
go
have
somewhere
to
else."
go make a living and not own our own property. And Dorothy's probably gonna have to work too.
But the way it sounded in my reading was that Dorothy would have to be sent away to work somewhere, anywhere she can
yeah.
get work and be away from
And just
them.
send money
Like,
to the family.
She's gonna go be
Yeah.
a nanny or a tutor or something and be far away from them and never see them again.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense too. And they don't want to stress Dorothy out either, because they're like, oh my god, like we can't just like tell
Well,
her.
also she just disappears, so it's
Yeah.
like if
Oh
we
my
do
God,
tell
that's
her
actually
what, she's
scary
just gonna
too.
disappear.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we don't have anyone making any money for us.
Yeah.
Like, although that sounds fucked up, but it's like you got a kid
Yeah.
to kind of help out with that type of stuff.
yeah.
They don't want to like bring like this kind of real talk to Dorothy because she's just a kid, so they don't tell her for several days. Remember, the ticker started at 30 days,
Yeah.
and we're probably going on like a week. We have not told Dorothy.
But then
Yikes.
Dorothy finds Aunt Em crying, and Uncle Henry is like comforting her, and like Dorothy kind of like comes into the room and is like, hey, like, what's up?
Well,
And then Henry lays out the details.
this is all news to Dorothy.
Yeah. She's shocked. She's like, we're poor?
Yeah, she
I
had
love
no
my life."
idea they were poor.
She's so happy. And I'm like, it's actually really sweet. And she's like young and naive too. Well, Dorothy has never had to worry about any of that. She literally thought she was rich this whole time.
Good for her.
Or she must have, at least, because if I was a child, no matter how rich my parents were, if I went to a fairy world, I'd be like, can I just take 2 diamonds back? 2 diamonds. 2 diamonds the size of a tater tot
Honestly.
each.
like,
Like
can I take something?
hundreds
like,
of thousands
give me
of dollars.
something. I'm a kid.
Yeah,
I
I'd be
want a
like,
souvenir.
just take me back with money. Like,
Aunt Em,
not crazy.
after telling Dorothy, is like, God damn, like, you know, it's one thing we can't take care of ourselves, but it shatters our hearts that we have to like raise you in poverty and send you away to get a job when you're 12 years old. Like,
Yeah,
that breaks
that's
our
so
hearts.
pretty
Which
shitty.
also, like, back then, weren't young women
yeah, how
starting
old were
working?
people working?
Well, it's
during that
interesting
time?
because they kind of emphasize here too, which this is interesting. They emphasize that like, hey, we're not gonna like live on our farm and like own our own lives anymore. Like, we're gonna have to go work for people. Like, this isn't gonna be a farm anymore.
not
This isn't
working
gonna
for the
be
family.
a house. Yeah, exactly.
They're gonna
It's
go
like,
be servants.
it's an
yeah,
interesting.
you're gonna have to get a job outside of us.
It's an interesting
Oh,
view
yeah,
because
that's different.
capitalism has like in like, you know, for positive, negative, whatever, but like everyone has a job now where like if I
Yeah.
just stopped being a finance manager, there's nothing else to do, you know. Like, I can't just go home and do that to make a living by owning a property. Like,
No,
I'd have to be
yeah.
like,
You have
okay,
to
I'll
learn
be
those skills
yeah,
and stuff.
exactly, yeah. So it's like if nowadays it's like everyone has a job, no one just owns a farm, you know, like
Yeah.
only very few people do. And it's like, but back
And
then,
if you do, it's like you know what you're doing then, and
Yeah.
you're making
Yeah.
money. You're profiting off of it.
oh,
So-
yeah,
like, because of this, like, because it's so home ingrained, Dorothy's like, what do I do to make money? They're like, oh, you know, you could go do housework for someone. You're so handy. You could be a nursemaid for someone's children.
and they say
Kinda.
they're like, hey, but if we can make enough money, we're just gonna send you to school instead. They're like, if we don't have, like, we're gonna have to work, so you can't live at home. But like,
School's not free.
yeah, and they're like, but we're in poor health, and we're probably like, no one's gonna want to
No
hire
one
us.
wants to
So
hire
like,
100-year-old on
They
them
say
and
though,
Uncle
they're like,
Henry.
hey, we want to send you to school. We know that we're probably not going to be able to. And they're just laying out the details, which I think is great, and explains some of Dorothy's personality. Honestly, they're
Dorothy
quite
just-
straight
Just
laced.
blunt,
It is.
yeah.
It's important.
open.
But
But
Dorothy
bitch.
kind of smiles, and she's like, wouldn't that be so funny if I was just like a slave doing housework in Kansas when I'm literally a princess in the land of Oz?
Yeah.
And they said,
Yeah, they're like,
princess?
what the fuck?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So where's your crown and why is it not here?
Well, yeah, they're
Dorothy's
like,
shit.
what?
I must have forgotten to mention that.
Yeah.
Ozma made me a princess months ago.
Yeah.
I'm a princess in Oz. They're always begging me to stay. Why don't I just go move there?
So this is a little confusing to me just because I'm like, I don't really know what everyone's beliefs are. Because at this point, Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are astounded that Dorothy's a princess. And they're like, hey, could you go back there? Like, could you go live there the rest of your life? And she's like, yeah, that would be super easy. And for the first fucking time in her life, Dorothy has remembered the arrangement with Ozma.
the belt.
Yes, because she's like, hey, I have a special setup with Ozma where if I make the symbol at 4 o'clock, she'll
The belt
take me back
and
there.
the magic.
So
And
all
the mirror.
of a sudden,
Yeah.
the belt exists.
Exactly.
Thank the Lord
For some
Jesus.
reason,
Yeah,
this is
for-
the first time
In
ever
the
that she
second
suggested
chapter, we're using it for the first
Yeah.
time.
And also the thing is, she she needs to find a place to stay and this and that. It's like real life drama or just like shit that's going on. There were several moments in the last couple books where
Yeah.
she was at like a life and death situation and she did not even bring up
Dude,
the belt.
The minute,
No.
the minute in the last book, the minute that she was with the Shaggy Man, looked up and there was 100 roads, she should have said, "Hey, what time is it? Let's wait till 4 p.m. I have a fairy princess who will get me out of this because this is already sketchy."
Ozma
Easy.
didn't even use the belt in the last book we did.
They got
except
bubbled
to
away.
Send Dorothy home. She sent Dorothy
Oh,
and
that's
Toto
right,
home
that's
with the
right.
belt because Dorothy
You're
was like,
right.
"I'm not getting in that fucking bubble."
That's right.
But Ozma didn't even bring her there with the belt. She sent other people to
to
walk
bring her.
to her and walk her back. Ozma,
Wow.
I'm not happy with her, and she better not be having a birthday in this book because we're fighting.
This is a full year
Well,
later.
actually, don't invite me to your birthday right now.
After Dorothy explains her situation with the belt and the mirror and like how she can get Ozma to take her to Oz, Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are quiet for a minute. They kind of like look at each other and they're like, "Hey, this is heartbreaking for us, but like Dorothy, like it is best with you. Like if you can go live in Oz forever, like they'll take care of you. Like if
Definitely
you're
do that.
sure."
Uncle Hen is like, okay. Let's get real. What if this fairyland doesn't exist?
Yeah. And what if people aren't as kind there as Dorothy thinks? Like I think he's kind of euphemisming it.
I think
He's thinking of all the scenarios.
Yeah.
he thinks that every time Dorothy's been missing, she's been in the streets and alleyways, and that she's just like created the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman to cover up little mental bandages.
Oh my god.
And he's like, what if maybe we shouldn't just send her out into the streets?
yeah, maybe that's not the safest thing for us to
But-
do. I think that's a good.
Dorothy,
I
good
think
for
it's
Uncle
good.
Henry.
it's good.
Yeah.
I'm not sending my kid to a fairyland.
Yeah. What the fuck? You
No.
think it's
Um,
actual? Like, I wouldn't think that it was real.
But
No.
Dorothy literally laughs in his face, and in her
okay,
head,
bitch, you're
she
going
make-
on the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In her head, she makes a plan. She doesn't share her plan with her aunt and uncle because she has to see Ozma and discuss it with her first. So
And Dorothy says, "I'll go to Oz this afternoon, and I promise that I will come back here and see you before you need to leave the farm." So, like, it's all good. Henry's like, "Well, hey, that's pretty close. Like, we
Yeah.
kind of kept this private for a long time, so it's gonna be
Let's
pretty quick."
hope your friends can give you a home, girlie.
Yeah.
So that afternoon, Dorothy kisses Em and Hen. She goes up to her room with a small dog named Toto in her arms.
Yeah. Hi,
Um,
Toto.
She looks in her closet at all the gingham dresses that she loves so much, and she's like, "Oh, I should pack these." And she's like, "I'm going to Oz.
Yeah, she's
I
like,
don't need these
I
gingham
don't need
dresses."
these for
You're
my
like, "I
future.
gotcha."
So she just sits in her chair. She waits until 4 p.m. She makes her little signal, and then
Aunt Em and Uncle Henry downstairs. They're watching the stairs because that's the only way Dorothy could possibly exit the building. They're watching the stairs. The clock strikes 4, nothing. The clock strikes 4:30.
they're like, "Okay,
Nothing.
no, we're gonna go."
We're
Let's-
going
we're gonna go
upstairs.
Let's check it out. Let's check it out.
So they call her name. They go up the stairs. They look in her room, and Dorothy has vanished.
Yee.
And that is the end of chapter 2 how Uncle Henry got into trouble. And Blake, what would you call that?
Wait, what?
A situation of great interest because
Mortgage
the mortgage.
interest.
Yeah.
Oh.
Chapter 3. How Ozma granted Dorothy's request.
So L. Frank Baum starts this chapter by telling us that
Sorry.
we've probably read so much about the magnificent Emerald City that there's little need for him to describe it.
But then
He
he
describes
goes into some startling statistics.
So in depth, like for like 8 paragraphs, and I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I didn't know that.
The Emerald City is the capital of Oz and is the most beautiful among fairy countries. We knew that.
tracker.
That's not crazy.
Hey,
Okay,
why?
okay.
How many buildings would you say might be in the Emerald City?
Let me think. I would say probably around 9,654 buildings.
That's crazy. That's a massive number.
I'll tell you.
How about people?
Ooh, how many people?
9 billion.
That's huge.
Yeah. The
I don't know. You guys just said 900,000 or something. For the amount of
9,000.
buildings. That's a lot.
That is a lot. But the population is 57,318 people.
doesn't-
That's news.
However, this actually is a guest trivia question.
Uh-oh.
So, guest trivia. The population of Oz in the year 1910 is the closest to which American city in the year 1910?
Oh,
Yeah, so at the
multiple choice?
yeah, it is multiple choice.
Okay.
So the population of Oz or of the
Population?
Emerald City is 57,318. So 57,000
Okay.
is the Emerald City population.
Mm-hmm.
So the options are A, Portland, Oregon, B, Portland, Maine, C, New York City, or D, Kansas City, Kansas.
Missouri.
Kansas City, Kansas.
There's a Kansas City, Kansas?
Yeah.
That's not the one I
d-
think of.
No, it's not the one we know.
So that is Portland, Oregon, Portland,
I'm
Maine.
going to say Portland, Maine.
Final answer?
Yeah.
That is correct.
Good
Yes!
word.
That is incredible. And also, it seems almost more impressive in a way because the Emerald City population is 57,300. Portland, Maine is 57,500. So it is almost the
Whoa.
exact same population. This is via the U.S. Census Bureau from 1910.
That is pretty close.
Also, just what's kind of crazy to me, New York City at that time, 2.7 million.
Yeah, I
And
was
Oregon
like-
was 207,000, which I didn't think, or Portland, I mean. I didn't think Portland was that big back then. So,
Guess so.
anyway.
Yeah, that is crazy.
City, city, city.
And altogether, there were 500,000 people in Oz. So, the
Yes.
whole country of Oz
'Cause
is
there's-
500,000.
There's all the Munchkins, the Gillikins, the Quadlings, the Winkies.
And not all of
That
them are
all
alive.
adds up.
That includes the
No,
people who are not living.
Not everyone is a meat person.
That's true.
Oh, my God. Now we're going to
but-
get to some crazy shit.
Okay, so there are no diseases in Oz, so no one ever dies unless they meet an accident that prevents them from living.
That's a rule change to me.
That was not what
I
was-
heard a
heard. I
different
heard you
rule.
had to be murdered by your peers.
I heard
Yeah.
that you had to be a child murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
I heard a king of Oz tell me that. So
Yeah.
that's
But
a problem.
Also, there's no money, and all the
No poor
property.
people.
The property it actually all just belongs to Ozma because she's mommy,
Yeah.
and everyone who lives in Oz is considered her child.
Yeah. They all work half days, play half days. Farmers share their grains. People who make ornaments sell them for no money. Everyone just gets what they
Yeah.
want.
And L. Frank Baum tells us he's not sure that such an arrangement would work for us in the
Yeah.
ordinary humdrum world, but Dorothy has personally assured him
Yeah,
that
he
it
breaks the
works
fourth
very
wall.
well in Oz. So Dorothy and L. Frank Baum are friends.
Dorothy must have written him. It's insane.
Interesting.
Anyway, there's all
So
kinds
no
of
wonder she's the lead in every book.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Ugh. So there are all kinds of people in Oz, but none who are evil or who possess a selfish or violent nature. So basically, every villain from every previous book doesn't exist.
So it's like, but then, and I agree. This whole time I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? I've seen witches, I've seen enslavement, I've seen Mombi.
We've seen a lot of horrible things.
Then we get this big disclaimer.
He starts backtracking.
Yeah, he's like, hey, but like I'm
immediately.
Literally, he's like, I'm just talking in a general way. Like there are exceptions.
I mean, there's the hammerheads
literally,
out in the
he's
hills.
like,
I forgot about the hammerheads.
I know, yeah. Well, did you also forget about the Kalidas? Who he says, he's like, those are mostly tame now. Though.
All the Kalidas are tame now.
Oh,
by whom? I wonder.
By whom? Yeah, I want to know.
There's also the fighting trees who, reach down and throw people off to the side if they try to pass through them. But those are really scarce. They're in the more remote parts of Oz.
Yeah. Also, there are witches.
Oh, used to be.
But they were destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So you're just like, right now, things are fine. Like,
Right.
there's terrible places, and right now there are no witches who have enslaved over half the
So
population.
here's the thing, though. Like, there were the 2 wicked witches in the first book, both of which were killed and destroyed. But what about, like, Mombi? Like, Mombi was forced to forget her magic,
Yeah.
but
No
she
one's
wasn't
violent or angry.
destroyed.
She wasn't
Yeah.
destroyed. She's still there.
Are they saying they destroyed the witch, but then the woman still existed?
I think they must just be talking about the east, which is the east and the
But
west.
Mombi
and
has
that.
no access to magic anymore.
Not anymore,
right?
yeah.
No, she doesn't even remember
And,
magic.
but, and
Okay.
also, Tip/Ozma
So she's
said,
not really a threat.
Ozma said that she was going to provide for Mombi the rest of her life, so Mombi probably isn't violent or evil anymore.
Yeah, she's
She
chilling.
has
She's like, thanks
everything.
for not throwing me in prison.
She never really wanted
She's like,
power.
I'd rather
you
be
know?
able to like eat and stuff than be like
yeah, she's like, I'll
stuck in a
sit quietly. I'm
dungeon.
chilling.
So L. Frank Baum is like, I suppose every country has some drawbacks, so even this almost perfect fairyland could not be quite perfect. Like, okay, whatever helps you sleep at night, Frankie.
Yeah.
We're reminded that Dorothy is Ozma's best friend, and Ozma made her a princess of Oz and wants her to stay in the Emerald City forever. Like, we already know this. We learned it before Dorothy left Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Dorothy's always been like, hey, no, I want to live with my aunt and uncle. Like, I love them. Like, I'm loyal to them. And I don't know that I'm poor at home. And so she's always declined. But now Dorothy has resolved that she's going to ask a, quote, great favor from Ozma.
So a few seconds after making the secret hand signal in her bedroom, Dorothy appears in Ozma's Emerald Palace.
Yeah. And Ozma's there.
Yeah. She greets Dorothy, and immediately, first thing she says to her, what's wrong? Because she looks a little forlorn, and she apparently only ever uses the secret signal in danger or in trouble.
She's like, hey, Dorothy, you've never made that signal and not been in trouble.
What about when I am in trouble? Bitch, I've never made that signal before.
Yeah,
I
even
thought
when she's been in trouble, and I know for a fact that you've been watching.
I thought that she just
Nothing
makes that
happens.
signal when she wants to come hang out.
But that
Yeah,
means
that's what I thought it was for.
it is. I think that is what it could be for, because Ozma wants Dorothy there. But I'm like, okay, but she's never been there before then. She's never used that signal
Is
to
Ozma
get there.
upset that Dorothy doesn't want to just stay in Oz?
I think
Honestly,
she kind of
Ozma.
is.
Okay,
I
Ozma-
feel like
okay,
there
hold
might be
on.
some resentment there.
Hold on. Ozma doesn't
Ozma
have
doesn't have a family.
Ozma doesn't have resentment. Like, she's not capable of resentment. But let's continue, because actually you're on the right track.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Dorothy sighs and she's like, like, it's not me who needs help. It's Aunt Em and Uncle Hen who need help. And she explains the whole situation. She tells Ozma that they're going to be homeless. They're too old to work. She's going to have to work for them unless... And
Ozma's like, oh, I see where you're going. And she's like, unless what, my dear? And Dorothy's like, well, can we all just live here in Oz with you? Like, I can't come here without
Aunt
them.
Em, and Uncle Henry.
Like
Yeah.
they
Come
want to
live
live there.
So
Ozma laughs in her face.
Oh shit!
And then she says,
"Damn, you don't even be like that."
She says, of course.
She tells Dorothy, she's like, actually, I've already had this idea myself several times. If they're that important to you, I know they're good people.
It's like, might as well keep them all in one place,
Yeah.
right? Then you have to keep them going back and forth.
Yeah.
So Ozma,
you always end up here.
Ozma says
Yeah.
to Dorothy, For your friends, princess, there is always room in the land of Oz. Dorothy's a fucking princess. I know we already know that, but Dorothy's
why does she
like,
even need to ask? There's no
Yeah.
need.
right.
Well, that's what you said.
you live there.
Yeah.
You're a patriarch.
You
there.
can
Or
invite
matriarch.
whoever you want. You invite people regardless.
Yeah. Okay, that's funny.
But Dorothy is
Yeah.
like, she's like, no, don't call me princess. Like, when we move here, I'm
Okay,
gonna
humble
live. I'm gonna
queen.
live on a farm in the Munchkin Kingdom with Aunt Em and Uncle Henry.
And
Okay, that's fine.
Ozma is like, no, you'll be a princess, and you'll actually have rooms here in the palace.
you
and
know
you'll be
you're-
my constant
You know
companion.
Dorothy's apartment that you stay in every single
Yeah.
time you come
It
here.
has your name.
That's
in emerald.
actually gonna be your house,
Yeah,
you
that's
idiot.
actually where you're gonna stay
Um,
because that's where you've been staying every single time you visit.
Yeah. Dorothy's like, what about my family? Ozma's like, dude.
Do you think we're just
You're-
gonna throw them out in the
She's like,
fucking
"Your aunt-"
deadly
Yeah,
desert and let
exactly.
them fucking evaporate
And
into
also,
the
like,
sand? No,
what,
we're
they're
not
gonna,
gonna
they're
do
gonna
that.
live. They're gonna live a half a day's
do you think,
walk
we're
away from
idiots?
you. You'll just go visit them in Ozma's chariot.
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
Like we
But-
can do whatever the fuck we want here.
Ozma tells her though, she's like, your aunt and uncle are old. They've worked forever. Like, we'll set them up
Let
so
them
Yeah.
they
rest.
don't have to do any work. They don't have to live in the Munchkin villages doing farming.
Yeah. And Dorothy's like, okay, like that makes sense. And Dorothy's like, okay, or Ozma is like, okay, well, like when should we bring them here? And Dorothy's like, well, how about next Saturday? Because like then you can send me back to them and I'll tell them what's happening.
I'm sorry, Dorothy. How about right this second?
Yeah.
What?
Ozma's like, whoa, why would we ever do
Let's just
that?
figure it out now.
I will
Right?
say, I understand where Ozma's coming from, because she explains, well, like if you go back and tell them that they're going to be transported magically, like that's kind of like scary. It's going to make them
it's
anxious.
confusing. They're
like-
gonna have a million questions. Also, like, what's the point? Like, you're already here.
Yeah.
What's the point in sending you back to Kansas
just to
tell them to come
tell-
back? Also,
yeah.
what's the point of making them sit around and wait to be evicted from the home they've always
Yeah.
known? Like, let's just
Seriously.
bring them. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
They're just going to be sitting there being like, wow, we're going to be evicted, and also Dorothy's gone forever. Like that's how terrible.
Yeah, they're in the worst part of their minds right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And Dorothy agrees. So
Yeah, they decide that tomorrow morning they're going to bring Aunt Em and Uncle Henry to the Emerald City. Julia Jam will prepare the rooms.
Okay, Julia.
Yeah. Dorothy's so grateful she can't contain herself. She's kissing Ozma all over the face. And Ozma's like, all right, well,
yeah.
now that we've talked shop,
Well, it's like, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Don't get so excited yet.
she's like, let's just go for a walk in the gardens and then get showered and dressed for dinner because, you know, dinner's always a huge deal. This is
Yeah.
the first time
let's get
Dorothy's
ready.
it's the first time Dorothy's seen Ozma before dinner.
It is. I was
Oh,
literally
shit,
thinking
yeah.
that when she appeared in the throne room or whatever and kissed her immediately. I was like, oh, she just straight to her room.
like-
Because it's
okay.
the first time Ozma's used the magic fucking belt.
It's true.
Honestly, things are different when you use the magic belt.
But that is the end of chapter 3. How Ozma, note the how, Ozma granted Dorothy's request. And Blake, what would you call that request?
Okay, I put a colon in this one.
Ooh.
Ozma's real estate magic. Aunt Em and Uncle Henry get a plot twist.
Okay, plot like a land plot.
Yes,
Good
damn. Thank. I didn't even have to explain
He got it. He got it. I would have asked for an explanation.
Chapter 4. How the Gnome King planned revenge.
Gnome King, Gnome King, Gnome
I know.
King.
We're
It's
jumping
all
around.
about
Here
the
it
Gnome
is.
We're
King.
jumping around.
So L. Frank Baum tells us that the reason most people are bad is because they don't try to be good.
just some food for thought.
And since the Gnome King has never tried to be good,
Yeah.
he's very bad.
Also, we're really playing around with Roquat here. Like, in this section, like, we're really switching between Gnome King and Roquat. And so, Roquat is plotting how he's going to march on, destroy, and enslave the Emerald City. Like, he has all these plans. He's, like, working on more. He thinks he can do it. And this is around the time that Dorothy is getting to Ozma. We're told, hey, right around the same time, Dorothy's just getting to Ozma. And at this time, the Gnome King calls in Calico. And he says, hey, like, you're going to be my new general.
Calico's like, no, that's okay. I don't want to be the general.
Yeah. And why not? You might ask.
Like, Calico's like, I'm your chief steward, always have been for a very long time. I don't know anything about warfare. There are hundreds of gnomes who would be glad to be your general. Let's go find one of them.
And they'd be better than me, like, obviously. And the Gnome King's like, okay, well, that makes sense. So he's like, okay, assemble the army. So Calico goes to do that. And you'll recall the Gnome King's like chamber has the doorway that goes out to that balcony that overlooks all the gnomes, you know?
It's called the Great Cavern, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. So he goes on the balcony and he surveys 50,000 soldiers awaiting to hear his remark.
Yeah. The king goes out on the balcony over to see them. So here's the thing. The gnomes are minors when they're not needed for the army.
Yeah.
They're very muscular. They're short. They're round. They have these ugly toes. They've got these pointy ears. The Gnome King is above them, looking at all these hideous little things, and he's like,
oh, yeah, that's
this
good.
is my army.
Yeah, he's feeling good about it. And he's like, hey, who's going to be my new general?
I've thrown away General Blug.
Yeah,
who
that's
would
right. He
like
just
to
throws
be?
people away.
Well, who would like to be
I
the next
forgot.
one?
There's good news. Colonel Crinkle steps forward, and he salutes, and he says, I am going to be
Yeah.
your new general.
Uh-oh.
He's the next in command.
Crinkle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colonel Crinkle.
The
Crinkle
gnome-
him up into a trash can.
Hey!
Probably.
The Gnome King tells Colonel Crinkle that he wants him to march the army through an underground tunnel to the Emerald City, conquer the people, destroy their city, steal their gold and gems, and retrieve the magic belt.
Plans.
The Gnome King says, "Will you do it?"
No, can't be done.
Absolutely not. It's impossible.
That's what Colonel Crinkle says.
Okay.
So the Gnome King turns to his servants and he's like, excuse me. Will you please take General Crinkle to the torture chamber and slice him into thin slices and feed him to the 7-headed dogs?
Oh my god.
So then the Gnome King is like, okay, like who else
what
wants
is
to be
the
the
name
general?
of the 7-headed dogs?
Well, okay, exactly. They move on from all of that. There's
I just
no
want to know if their name's
mention.
Fluffy.
It's probably Cerberus. Oh, Fluffy, very good. It
Very
is like
good.
I feel like it is a
yeah,
parallel.
I know Harry Potter.
She's such a nerd.
Nerd
not-
life.
Not like other girls. Nerd life. Nerd life. Nerd life.
Life. See our recent TikTok. So, after throwing away Crinkle, the Gnome King is like, who will take on the task? The army's silent for a minute. Then this old gnome with white whiskers so long that they're tied around his waist steps forward, and he salutes the Gnome King, and he says, I have a few questions.
Same.
He has
Honestly, same.
3 questions to which the Gnome
Let's hear
King
'em.
answers each, and I have a problem with one of the answers.
Okay.
So, are the people of Oz good?
Good as apple pie.
That's what he said?
Yeah. And just wait. Are the people of Oz happy?
They're happy as the day is long.
So
What?
So 2 similes, right? And are they content and prosperous?
Yes. Wait, what did he say there?
He just says very much so.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, so
Yeah.
good as apple pie, happy as the day is long, very much so.
That's
I'm
not
like,
enough.
Yeah, it's not. It's
That's
not.
not
You-
good
you
No,
for me.
set
it's
it
enough.
up wrong.
It's enough.
It's not
because
good for me.
This old gnome, he's like, cool. I'll take the job. I hate good people. I detest happy people. I'm opposed to contented and
Okay.
prosperous
Well, I guess
people.
when you feel that way.
I'll be your general.
Yeah.
I guess when you feel
I guess
that
when you feel
way.
the opposite way that I was thinking that people usually feel, then yeah, you'll thrive.
Yeah, you can do this job then.
You're gonna do great. You're gonna make lots of money.
He tells the Gnome King, if I fail, I am fully prepared to be fed to the 7-headed dogs. Fine.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
King Roquat, he's like, goody, goody, goody. What's your name?
General Guff. G-U-P-H.
G-U-P-H?
Yeah.
Guff.
So we got rid of
Interesting.
Blug. We got rid of Crinkle. Now we're on Guff. Calico is still there, but he's the advisor.
The Gnome King invites Guff to discuss this with him in his private cave. I almost said cage. And he tells the rest of the army that they are to obey Guff's commands until he becomes dog food.
Yep.
Oh.
So Guff comes in to the private cavern, and he's coming in with a certain attitude, I guess.
He's got an attitude. He sits down, throws his feet up on the Gnome King's throne, lights his pipe, throws the live coal on the Gnome King's foot,
blows smoke in his eyes.
Blows smoke in his face.
He wants to show the king he's not afraid.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Say, what do you got for me there, Gnome King?" The Gnome King is like, "Does it not make you tremble to do this to me? To throw fire at me and blow smoke in my face?"
Because he's just like, I'm so powerful, I could fucking snap you in half
But
like
Guff-
a toothpick.
Guff is playing the game.
Okay.
He has the right answers. Because he's like, well, like, I'm the only one that can get this job done, so I don't think you would harm me until the job is done. And once the job is done, you're going to be so happy with me, you won't even want to.
It's not like you're going to try to kill me, because then you could
Yeah.
use me sometime in the future, probably.
Exactly.
Gnome King is
For
like,
something.
Gnome
For
King's
something.
like, good point. So what if you fail? Guff is like, if I fail, you slice me up and you feed me to the dogs.
But
Here's the thing. Guff isn't going to fail because the Gnome King is going to do exactly what Guff tells him to do. And if the Gnome King does exactly what Guff tells him to do, they will not fail.
Guff has a plan. He says that Roquat is too brash, too reckless. He needs to think things through. Guff explains that they have to gather allies. And you know what that means, right?
Ally.
Yeah.
Ally. He says, look, here's the thing. Our army is gnomes. They're not enough. We are going up against Ozma's wand.
Wait, okay. Ozma has a wand.
Apparently
'Cause
Ozma
they
has a
say
wand.
The girl ruler
You're
has
a wizard,
magic wand.
Ozma.
Yeah.
You're a wizard.
I'm a what?
That was the Harry Potter music. I'm sorry about
But-
that.
No, I got it.
I don't get it though. Magic wand, Ozma. Not sure about that.
Ozma has
Okay.
a wand.
Sure.
Dorothy has the magic belt. What do we got? We got Glinda the Good,
Well-
who controls the spirits and the air.
They actually
That's-
the book says at the north of the city is the sorceress Glinda.
Oh.
What we know
She lives in the south.
is Glinda lives in the south, and it does say she commands the spirits of the air, which makes
don't know
no
what
sense
that
at all.
means. And then, of course, they have the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
What's
who,
he out here doing?
Well,
They didn't really
people
mention it.
people in the real world spend good money to watch him do his magic.
with
so
the pigs?
he must be powerful.
the
yeah,
pigs.
yes. With the pigs. Thought so.
That's all fucking not.
So the king is like, yeah, well, we have 50,000 soldiers. But then the general says something I didn't actually fully understand. Because he's like, well, they're gnomes. Like,
Yeah, but what are gnomes are what?
well, gnomes are immortal.
Yeah, but they don't have.
Strong magic.
Okay, so
But I'm like, wait.
but they're
they're
immortal.
immortal.
Like
Yeah, it's like you
They-
can't kill
it
them.
seems like you have
so they're
the-
gonna keep on attacking you.
they're the perfect
until
army.
you're dead.
Yeah.
They're the best army you could
I'm
possibly
just
have.
like they don't have to have any skills because they don't die.
Yeah, there's nothing there. I don't understand it. And then
Mm.
he also mentions, and the belt took half your power. So, like, okay, that seems like the bigger part of it, maybe. But, like, either way, they'd be helpless against Oz.
Basically, the Gnome King is like, okay, so it sounds like you're telling me we're not going to win. So
Go to the
bye,
slicer.
go to the slicing machine. And Guff's like, oh no, like we can win if we get the power that we need.
Yeah. There are many evil, magical creatures who could destroy Oz and who would be willing to help them.
Yeah, just got to band together. Gnome King loves this idea, tells Guff that he's the greatest general he's ever had, The Gnome King tells Guff to go and make arrangements with the evil powers that they will need to win the battle. And in the meantime, the Gnome King's got a tunnel to dig.
And we end this chapter with Guff saying, okay, I'll start this afternoon. I'm going to visit the chief of the Mimsies, who is one of the dark powers.
Mimsies?
Whimsies.
Whimsies.
Never heard of him.
You thought you heard of the other thing.
We know the last Mimsy. But that is the end of chapter 4, how the Gnome King planned revenge. And Blake, what would you call that?
I'm leaving this one up to a vote because I had 2 good ones for this.
Ooh, let's hear him.
The first, a wickedly clever plan. Or digging for trouble.
I like digging for trouble better.
Yeah, I think I like digging for trouble.
I don't think I got the first one.
Because they're wicked and evil and they need to get all of the most evil beings in the fairy country to stand up against Oz. I thought it was pretty clear. Wicked.
I know.
Digging.
Thank you for listening to Oz Hour. Please join us next time as we continue with Chapter 5, How Dorothy Became a Princess. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Oz Hour Podcast for the latest on everything Oz. Oz Hour, created and hosted by Blake Stone and Wyatt Swingham. Co-hosted by Hannah Aguirre. Audio production by Charlie Johnson. Theme music written and performed by Rudy Klobus. Cover art by Valentin Lucas.
Last time on Oz Hour.
Okay, so last time we just greet Dorothy. She meets the Shaggy Man. They're on this like dirt road, and then all the dirt roads turn into thousands of dirt roads. And they're like, oh, which one do we do? And they go and they just go down one and they meet this little boy who's digging a hole, little button bright. And he's like, don't know. And they move past that. They go into this this place that has this foxes everywhere, and they're out here being foxes and stuff. And Button Bright is like, ah, ha, 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 and they meet the king of all these little foxes and everything, and he turns Button Bright. Well, he doesn't turn him into a fox, but he makes his head into a fox. And then they're like, oh, no, that sucks. And they leave there, and they keep going. They're like, oh, we have to go to the next place. In the meantime, they meet this rainbow child, Polychrome. Polychrome's dancing around. She's cold. She's hot. She's all these different types of things. She's dancing. She's singing. She's sad. She's happy. It's all over the place. And then they keep on going with their journey. She's there with them. And then they run into this donkey town. I can't remember the name of the town now, but it's Donkey Town to me now. And they go, and then all of a sudden the Shaggy Man, his head turns into a donkey, because it's just basically what happened at the Foxville is what happened at the Donkey Town. And when they leave there, they meet this little music man. Everyone is so mean to him. They're just like, oh, you're annoying and loud and no one likes to hear you sing, even though that's like literally his whole existence. And so then they leave from there. They go, they see this desert. They have this Johnny Do It guy do the thing to get them across the desert. They make it past there. Then they meet this pond, and then they jump in the pond. Their heads go back to normal, and then from there they go into the Emerald City. Shaggy Man has this whole existential crisis where he's like, I don't want to live this life anymore. I want to stay here in Oz. So he does, and he stays there. And then birthday. Oh, I also forgot the pumpkin head. They did meet him on the way there, but I'm just going to jump past there because I didn't mention it before. And I also missed the Tin Man. But anyway, that did happen. But we're going to jump ahead to Ozma's birthday, because that's what we've all been waiting for, right? Ozma's birthday. So here we are. Everyone's here at Ozma's birthday. We meet all the guests. We meet all the people. And everyone is happy. And then they all get home in bubbles. The end. Happy ending.
And the Scoodlers.
Scoodlers.